Welcome back to another install of, excuse me, as soon as my alarm goes off, just botch the open. Welcome back to the install with Greg Cosell of NFL Films. This is what I get for trying to be polished and professional, Greg. Just completely screw it up right out the gate. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, Buck. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm just trying to figure out who the hell plays for which team at this point in the league.
It's kind of tough to figure out. Yeah, there's a lot. I can't remember this much movement, but I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old and I just can't remember. But it seems like there's a lot of movement.
I would say that's accurate. I mean, you don't strike me, Greg, as somebody who gets caught up in the Christmas Day aspect of free agency. You just figure out where the players are going to go, and then you discuss how they're going to fit in whichever scheme that they're going to.
Yeah, but when I see when something happens, I see it, and then we go from there.
Yeah, but I mean, this year it has felt like there are more consequential moves than any free agency that I can remember. Certainly more quarterback movement than I can remember. And I wonder if you have had any takeaways about the way that teams are going about this year, or is it just same old back to business, try win the Super Bowl?
Well, obviously that's the goal, but I think it's pretty clear with a number of signings and movement, not just quarterbacks, but in general, that, and this is not a profound statement, but I think it's evident that you have to score on offense and you've got to get to the quarterback on defense.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, if you can't get explosive plays on offense, and if you can't get to the quarterback on defense, you're going to have a difficult time in the way the league is structured now.
Yeah.
I mean, you see Chandler Jones going to the Raiders. You see Von Miller going to the Bills. Why do these things happen? We saw Tyreek Hill, obviously, going to the Dolphins. Why do these things happen? Because number one, you've got to create explosive plays offensively, and defensively, you've got to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, that's been the approach for every team, certainly in the AFC. I know the NFC is doing their best they can to keep up, but all the players seem to be migrating over to this side of the bracket.
I know it's pretty interesting, isn't it?
I'm excited.
Watch the NFC will win the Super Bowl this year.
Inevitably, that's
because
none of us know anything until the games actually take place.
Right.
So if you don't mind, Greg, I'd like to start local, just since we are based out of Tennessee, and Robert Woods gave his press conference today. They add Robert Woods from the LA Rams. They add Austin Hooper, who's had an underwhelming career in Cleveland, though he has been a productive player since he's been in the league, only 27 years old. And when we talked about, how the Titans are going to keep up with everybody else, where offensive efficiency seems to be the priority, these are two moves that make sense from a practical standpoint without knowing how they're going to be implemented outright.
Correct. So the big question with the Titans, before I just mentioned Woods in particular, who's been one of my favorite players to watch on tape over the years, the key is philosophy. The bottom line in today's NFL, and there's many ways to do it, so keep that in mind, but you must create explosion plays on offense.
Yeah.
So however you choose to do it, that must be the objective. Now, we've seen the Titans be a run-first team, and certainly Derrick Henry can give you explosive plays, maybe like no other back in the league. That can happen. But percentage-wise, explosive plays come out of the pass game far more than the run game. So they need to find a way to create those explosive plays in the pass game. Now, it can happen off play action and use the run game as a foundation. But as we've discussed before, and it's still valid, at some point, your pass game must be able to operate independently of your run game. That has to happen if you're going to be, I don't want to say consistent week to week, because every week presents a different challenge, but that has to happen in any given week, because you never know what a given game will present.
Yeah, and I don't, because it almost, to me, based on the way that they've gone about their process here, Greg, it's not like they've gotten away with how they've done business. They've obviously got hugely talented players and a dedicated philosophy that they've been married to for several years now, and they've been able to manufacture explosive plays throughout the course of their time with Derrick Henry, but certainly that went away very, very quickly when you weren't getting these 60, 70, 80-yard touchdown runs from this one-of-a-kind running back, and you had to rely more on the explosives in the passing game that they just weren't able to come up with because of health or otherwise.
Yeah, and I think that's where they have to find out why that happened, because it was just a few years ago that they averaged over 30 points a game. So it's not as if they cannot function playing the way I think Mike Vrabel would like them to play.
Yeah.
The question they have to answer is, why did that stop? And I'm being honest, I don't know the specific answer to that. They have to figure that out in-house with a study of film, a study of their personnel. Look, it's obviously one reason why they went out and got Robert Woods. Robert Woods is a really, really good player. You wouldn't call him a vertical dimension, but he's a terrific route runner. He understands how to get open. He can beat man, he can beat zone. Look, he came from a place that has a very expansive passing game approach. My guess is they will talk to him about that a little bit and try to have him add some of the concepts and principles that he understands and knows from the Rams, and hopefully integrate and incorporate that into what the Titans do. And the other thing, and we know this is important for the way they play, Robert Woods is one of the best blocking wide receivers in the NFL. And that's really important, because no matter what I say, and they don't care what I say, nor should they, but the bottom line is they're not going to go away from handing the ball to Derrick Henry.
Yeah, no, that's certainly not going to be the case. So when you say that Robert Woods is one of your favorite players to study on film, Greg, and you've outlined what he does and how he functions so well, but what is it about the way in which he operates that you enjoy putting on the tape of Robert Woods?
The nuance, the detail, the subtlety with which he plays. He understands the receiver position. He understands how to run routes. He understands how to attack corners. He understands how to find voids in zone. It's all there on the tape, and just the effort he gives as a blocker in the run game. You know, no one would say he's a top 3 receiver in the league because he's not a vertical dimension. We don't think of Robert Woods and immediately think big explosive plays like we do with some other receivers who tend to be in that category. But he's just so efficient in everything he does. And my guess is that he will really bring a lot to this team just in terms of attitude, approach, day-to-day. I hate to use a cliche, but it's true in this case, of being a professional and the right way to go about doing things.
Yeah, it's not the cliche's fault that the cliche gets overused or applied to situations where it doesn't count. But this one, and certainly, you know, how highly he is regarded across the league, not just from people like you who study film, but by his colleagues, by his peers. I mean, he's been doing this for 9 years between Buffalo and LA at a high level. He is going, efficiency is the key word there that you just said. Yes. The efficiency of Robert Woods is something that I think people may not necessarily understand that they're getting if they haven't watched a ton of him, but that's certainly going to be a much needed contribution and availability, given the fact that Julio Jones is no longer a Titan.
Consistency of process. Mm-hmm. You know, when you talk to coaches, obviously the goal is to win on Sunday. That's the goal. We know that. But it's the process leading up to that is more often than not the difference between winning and losing. Yeah. You don't just show up on a Sunday or a Monday night and say, hey, let's play some football. It's everything that happens during the week and the approach to everything that needs to happen during the week. It's about process. Process leads to the right results. And Robert Woods is a process player.
That's something they certainly like to emphasize here in Nashville. So in that same breath, their other big ticket item, for lack of a better term, is Austin Hooper, who comes here from the Cleveland Browns, prior the Atlanta Falcons. 4 years, $42 million with Cleveland. He makes it 2 years through that deal. And obviously Baker Mayfield's injuries last season, Greg, had a great deal to do with just the general offensive struggle. So I don't want to hold that unfairly against Austin Hooper. But from a player who does both of the things that they require in this offense, primarily blocking, does this make sense to you from a fit?
Sure. Austin Hooper's a good player, not a special player. You know, you don't put him in the Darren Waller, Travis Kelce category, but a really solid tight end who can block. Look, the bottom line is he was in Cleveland the last couple of years, and they run the ball extremely well. He's a blocker. He's a good receiver, not an explosive receiver. You can scheme him to get him some vertical shots, but he's not going to run by people. Mm-hmm. But he's a really solid tight end They obviously felt they needed to upgrade the position. So they made a move, and it's a good move. It gives them a quality blocking tight end and a quality receiving tight end. So now you look at what they put out there, and you have A.J. Brown and Woods as your starting wideouts, which is perfect because Woods is a Z. Woods was the Z in for the Rams until he got hurt. Right. And that's what he's been. And so people understand what the Z is. And it does add some elements to their offense, by the way, because what Woods did, the Z receiver is the receiver that lines up off the ball, not on the line of scrimmage. So he can move. You can put him in motion. The Z is the movement receiver. So now motion can become a much bigger part of your offense if you choose to. You also have the jet sweep element with Woods. Even though he's not a burner, he's very used to doing that and very comfortable with it. So now you have your two wide receivers. The question, I guess, would be who's going to be number 3. I guess that's, would that be an open question at this point?
Yeah, because their draft is going to be both tight end and receiver probably predicated. But at this point, Nick Westbrook-Akina has done it all and played every position for them. So you can think of NWY.
And I think you can line him up if you need to, but we'll see what they do there. And then with Hooper, now is Ferkser? He's still there, right?
Unrestricted free, all three of them. Pruitt, Ferkser, and Swaim, who they brought back.
Right. Yeah. Right. Swaim they brought back. He's kind of the true blocker. So they signed Hooper because they don't know what Ferkser's status is. And Hooper is a better overall player. So now they're set if Ferkser ends up going somewhere else, which he probably would now at this point, because he's going to see that he's not going to get the snaps, the volume snaps that he probably like to get. So
nor the $6 million that Austin Hooper just got. That budget has been allocated.
Get that. And my guess is he won't get that anywhere. But so Hooper and Swaim are essentially your tight ends, and we'll see what the pass game looks like. I remember last year I was skeptical, and didn't make me right. It's not to say hey look at me, but I was skeptical of the whole Julio Jones just because I knew Julio's recent history, and I didn't know how that would work out. And unfortunately for the Titans, it didn't. So now they clearly have a receiver. Obviously he's coming off an ACL, but he'll be fine. And they have 2 really good outside receivers now. And Woods can line up anywhere, as theoretically can A.J. Brown.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see how these guys end up deploying them, but I imagine it will get back to looking a little bit more like it did in 2020 and 2019, especially with the consistency at the tight end position that they've just really lacked, and that's being such a big part of their offense. From Austin Hooper, who came from Cleveland, Greg, the Baker Mayfield thing is fascinating to me, because I don't know what to make of Baker as a pro. About 500 at a quarterback wins is not the way to judge a quarterback, but there seems to be, no single player seems to have cost themselves more money because of playing through injury than Baker Mayfield. And I wonder what is he when he's right from your analysis?
Well, my sense is there's more to it than the on field, but we don't know that, so I can't address that.
Only by Chris Mortensen's reporting say that they preferred an adult in the room.
Right. So that's all we know. But let's look on field. There's been a lot of talk. I just know what I read. You and I are not there in the building.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk that some people believe that Kevin Stefanski and his offense is not the right offense for Baker. I would disagree with that. The feeling being, if you go with that philosophy, that Baker is much more of sort of a freewheeling player, and you don't want to constrain him. You want to allow him, let Baker be Baker, so to speak, whatever that means.
This Baker Mayfield version of let Russ cook, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And I would disagree with that. I think Baker is at his best when he's part of a very well-structured, well-designed, well-schemed offense, which, by the way, the year before when they made the playoffs, no one seemed to have a problem with it. No. And they were very, very effective, because I would even go back to watching his tape coming out of Oklahoma. He was, contrary to what a lot of people might believe, he was a pocket player who played within structure, delivered the football. Baker has a very good arm. better arm than people might think. He's got a very good arm, and Baker is a structured player. That's what that offense is. It was and it is. They work off the play action pass game. They present and define the throws for him. He's very effective. Now, this past year, putting the injuries aside, let's keep a couple of things in mind, Buck. Number one, they lost a lot of their receivers, okay? Yep. They did not have consistent receivers. Hey, they hope that Donovan Peoples-Jones will become a great receiver. Let's hope he does. But he certainly wasn't that guy this year. He wasn't ready yet. So what happened a lot, and they really struggled on third down, is defenses started to condense coverage, and they took away a lot of throws that were rhythmic throws. And Baker got stuck a lot.
Yeah.
He got stuck in the pocket a lot, and he wasn't a comfortable player. And he started to play a little more frenetically, which he does have a tendency to do when he doesn't see it right away, or it's not there right away. So he had a difficult season. I can't speak to how the injuries affected him. None of us know that.
Sure.
You know, any coach, any player will tell you, if you're on the field, you've got to perform.
Yeah. So, and that was certainly the circumstance for Baker Mayfield. And now it'll be interesting with all the different quarterback movements. We're running out of really chairs to put quarterbacks.
Yeah, I can tell you right now that I don't believe he'll be the Seattle Seahawks quarterback. I don't think that would happen.
All I've seen is reporting on that, and it doesn't seem like they seem terribly interested in him being their quarterback.
No, so I mean, I don't know what that means. You know, maybe he has to end up getting released. And look, the league tells you, it's really fascinating how this works. You could almost look at Mitchell Trubisky as kind of a fascinating case study, because 1 year ago at this time, the league told him he wasn't good enough to be a starter. So what did he have to do? He had to sign in Buffalo, where he was clearly the backup. He was not competing for the starting job.
Right.
So the league told him he was not good enough to be a starter. Now, all of a sudden this year, with, I guess, the belief that there's not quarterbacks in the draft who could step right in, that's a different conversation. But all of a sudden, this year, the league, he's a starter now? Because he got signed as the starting quarterback in Pittsburgh. His game hasn't changed. He didn't play.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he got quality coaching because that's a good staff in Buffalo, but he didn't play. So he's probably not a different player in any meaningful way. But yet, because of the supply and demand in this given year, 2022, this spring, he's now a starting quarterback. So Baker could be in a situation where there's no place for him to start this year. And I don't think Cleveland will keep him, but he might just have to be released outright.
Yeah. And maybe, and I don't know if that the Steelers would snap him up or something like that, but that I think changes the game when you're not having to give up assets for a guy like that. But of course, we're not in those phone calls or conversations.
No, and then you start getting into the personality part, because the last thing that you want is if he becomes a backup that causes disruption.
That puts out goodbye tweets without actually being released from the
right.
team.
So that's we don't know any of this. I mean, other than what, as you said, what's been reported.
Yeah.
But so I don't want to go there, because I just, you know me, I don't do that. I don't know.
Nope. That's why this is always quality content, because we do not you leave a little reckless speculation to the vultures like me, Greg, and we'll come
right.
Insights and analysis. I just find it impossible to believe that in the year 2022, Marcus Mariota is going to be a potentially starting quarterback and Baker Mayfield's not. But you know,
Marcus is probably going to be the starting quarterback in Atlanta. I mean,
it would seem so.
Even if they draft one, I would think Marcus will be the guy.
And best of luck to him. I certainly hope that they're able to keep him up right there. So Matt Ryan,
okay, here's a perfect example. Let's play off that, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
So here's an example where, and we've heard, you know, all through these recent years, of course, that running backs are not really important, and that you can get one anywhere. I would think that Atlanta would feel that a running back's important this year.
I would say that is very, very so.
I would think that they believe, that Arthur Smith believes, that he has to run the ball. I mean, taking nothing away from Marcus Mariota, they're going to have to run the football. And last year they played with Mike Davis and Cordero Patterson. Now Patterson re-signed, but Patterson's not a 250 carry guy. Yeah. You know, you can use him like they use Debo in San Francisco, but they're going to need to run the football to get the most out of Marcus Mariota. So I would think that they would be in play for drafting a running back, and not waiting till the 6th round to say that, hey, we can get anybody, we can get you and I to play running back for the Falcons. I would think that they would be in the market for a quality runner, with the idea that they would rather have a better player at running back than a worse player at running back.
A quality runner and a couple of offensive linemen to help block for him.
Yep.
Certainly that's been a need in Atlanta for a couple of years.
Yep.
At this point. So we talk about a guy who hasn't been sacked less than 40 times since 2018, Greg, and Matt Ryan, who now goes from Atlanta to Indianapolis into the Titans division. It's hard to find ways in which this is not an upgrade from Carson Wentz, even as Carson did play well last season, but
for most of the year, yes.
For most of the year, and when they obviously went away from putting the ball so frequently in his hands towards the end of the season. But Matt Ryan with adequate protection, the numbers would bear out that he's still a high-level player.
I would agree with that. And I think when you saw what happened in Atlanta behind probably a below-average O-line, no run game, and not a very good defense either. That has to be factored in, because when you have to throw an awful lot and your O-line is not real good, and Matt Ryan is a pocket quarterback who's a strider, which means he steps into throws, so he needs space. Okay, so now he's going to a team, good defense good enough it's a playoff defense.
Yep. Good
O-line, great running back.
Yeah.
So now he's put in a situation where Matt Ryan can be Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is a very efficient player. He's been doing this a long time. He understands what he's seeing, both pre-snap and post-snap. He will take the throws that are given to him. They'll scheme some shot plays because he doesn't have a big arm. He's not going to drive the ball down the field, but they'll scheme some shot plays. He happens to be in a very good situation. He's definitely an upgrade in many ways, and I'm sure there's other things we don't know about as well as to why Carson Wentz is not there and now with Washington. But Matt Ryan is an upgrade for the Colts, and the Colts have a very solid team that's ready to win and be a playoff team.
Yeah, because I feel like the narrative around this has been, they're just doing the Phillip Rivers Band-Aid thing again, and that's not what Matt Ryan is at this stage of his career. And I understand what you're saying about him not being able to drive the ball with quite the velocity that he used to, but I still have to think that he'll help them have an additional vertical element to this passing game that Frank Reich really hasn't been able to implement.
Well, I think it'll be by design. Obviously Matt Ryan, his arm strength which was never high level, is even not what it was, 6, 7, 8 years ago. So it has to be schemed. But I don't know how long Matt Ryan's going to play. It doesn't seem like he's talked about retiring anytime soon.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know what that means, but the bottom line is for them, that's an upgrade. They have a really solid quarterback. Frank Reich does a really nice job with his system and design. So there will be opportunities. I think it's a clear upgrade, and they're a really solid team on both sides of the ball.
You look at the Titans fans just taking their earbuds out and throwing them by the wayside. They thought they had the division on lock for a third straight year. Velocity is something, or lack thereof, is something that comes up with Tua Tagovailoa, Greg, as far as what his skill set as a quarterback is. And he's just gotten, he had Jalen Waddle. They brought back Mike Gesicki. Devontae Parker is still there, and you add in Tyreek Hill. Mike McDaniel has a lot of new toys to play with. They've got additional protection with Teron Armstead on the left side from the New Orleans Saints. We don't know how they'll deploy these players, obviously, but we know what Mike McDaniel likes to run. We know basically what their concepts are going to be and what they've done with offenses in years past. How much better, or how much more does Tyreek Hill give them in an offense that already had a speedy wide receiver in Jalen Waddle?
And don't forget they signed Chase Edmonds, so they'll run the ball as well, which is where Mike McDaniel's going to start.
Yeah.
Look, you have to play to your quarterback. Tua has specific traits. Tua is at his best as a timing rhythm thrower. He's very comfortable in the RPO game. He's very comfortable in what I call the bang play action game, where you fake that handoff and it's a 3-step drop or a quick 5-step drop. So what they really needed, and why Hill makes sense, is they need run after catch.
Yeah.
Waddle gives them that. Hill gives them that. Hill came from Kansas City, where there was a lot of RPO concepts. He's used to running those slant routes, those glance routes. Tua is not a vertical thrower. Now, like I said, people might say, well, oh no, he can throw it down the field. Well, fade balls are not arm strength throws.
Right.
Tua is not a vertical thrower of the football. He's a timing rhythm thrower. He has pretty meaningful limitations, but now with Waddle, who's great run after catch as well, with Hill, who's great run after catch, they can design, and Mike McDaniel will be very good at this with the run game element. He knows what he's going to get from defenses because he's going to structure the offense to run the ball. So he knows what he's going to get from defenses. So now you can get those rhythm throws and get the ball in the hands of your playmakers like Waddle and Hill. And it can be short pass, long run, because that's essentially what Tua is. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He can't make those deep downfield throws that we saw with the Chiefs.
Yeah, and speaking of the Chiefs, I'd be fascinated to see what they do in the draft with needs.
Well, they now have 2 more picks. They have another first rounder and another second rounder. So
it's crazy to me that Tyreek Hill went for what's going to be 5 NFL players at some point, and Devontae Adams went for 2. I mean, I know they're different players. I know it's a different situation, but like, I don't know. I think Devontae Adams, the Raiders, even though they're paying through the nose for him, they just got such a deal with a fantastic wide receiver there.
Yeah, I mean, I think Adams is the best receiver in the game overall. Hill is a different cat. But I think Mike McDaniel is clearly thinking tactically here. It's easy to say Tyreek Hill's fast, but he's playing with a different quarterback than the one he's played with the last number of years. And those deeper throws are not going to be there. They're not going to be part of that offense. So Mike McDaniel's thinking tactically here as to how he's going to deploy Waddle and Hill and theoretically Parker, assuming he stays healthy.
Free agency is an arms race every year, but it just, I don't know. It feels different this year, Greg. I'm excited. I can't wait to see how all these new parts in different places work.
I think in the AFC, when you look at what a lot of teams have done, and it harkens back to how we started this, Buck, is you're going to have to score.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to win the AFC winning 17-13. I mean, you're going to have to score.
And you're certainly not going to do any damage losing 19-16. I can tell you that from a local standpoint. Greg, hopefully there's not like 6 other trades before this podcast airs. But certainly we'll have time to get it together and talk about it next week. And then eventually at some point get into the draft when all these transactions settle down a little bit.
Yeah, I think they'll settle down. Well, who knows? But yeah, I know I've been grinding away watching college guys, because I'm one guy, Buck. So there's a lot of guys to watch. It does take time. I did make it through 5 of Georgia's defenders, and they're pretty good.
Yeah. That's the kind of analysis you come. And by the way, the Tape Heads podcast that Greg is doing on top of all of the other media appearances it's a tremendous, I know we do a lot of this similar conversations around here, but I've really enjoyed listening to that and the way that you and Bob have worked through the draft element of this so far. It's a really,
Bob's great. No, that's been a lot of fun to do. Bob's great. And, so we talk about concepts and we talk about players. It's been a lot of fun.
Okay. Well, we'll do it again next week, buddy. Thanks for the time.
All right, Buck. Appreciate it.